Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garden Party, the world's most famous podcast.
When I say New York City in the 1980s, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I'm in junior high then. My first memories are taking the Long Island Railroad in with my dad, who was a diehard Knick fan. My first memories are like the Bob McAdoo teams in like the late 70s. First game I go to, I'm going to say, is probably the 80s season. I just remember the Twin Towers and the Human Eraser, Marvin Webster and Bill Cartwright. Right. So my first trips into Manhattan as a kid are all about the Knicks. That and, we're Irish and the St. Patrick's Day Parade. So those were the two events that we would come into town for.
It's funny that not only myself, but I asked my mother this question. What do you remember most about the Garden in the 80s? And she said, Saturday night at the Garden was the place to be. Everyone dressed up and all the women were dressed up to meet the players and meet the people. And they dressed up. It was a Saturday night. It was a very big deal to be able to go to the Garden on Saturday nights and see you play particularly. Wow. And the other thing that was amazing about the Garden then, I don't know if you remember that, there wasn't really a VIP players area. We all kind of entered together. And I remember meeting you particularly and some of the other players as well, coming in, just entering together. It wasn't like, and we were like, wow, like it was just a very exciting time.
My big memory from back then is if you got there early, you went to, was it called Crosby or Cosby? The merch store that was right to the left.
Cosby,
yeah.
One of those,
Couldn't afford to get a jersey, but you would go and walk around and look at all that. You'd kill a half hour there. And as we got older, we killed a half hour at Beefsteak Charlie's on the other side.
Yes. And there was also the Penn Club the Penn Plaza Club, where people would have dinner. And there was this maitre d' there named Cy, and Cy was the keeper of the reservations at the Penn Plaza Club, which is a fond memory.
Well, obviously for me, when I think of the 80s, it's my memories of being in New York playing for the New York Knicks, having grown up here in New York City in Brooklyn. And I used to play for the Golden State Warriors prior to joining the Knicks, and I was fortunate to make All-Pro with that team. So consequently, when I became a free agent, the Knicks had an interest in signing me. And so anytime we faced the Knicks, the preceding season, I always made sure I had a great game.
Yeah.
Just to set the table a little bit.
Exactly.
And so to sign with this club, growing up in New York City as a kid, watching the franchise, watching the championship years with Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe, David Busher, and Willis Reed, and just those great teams and those great individuals. And to don that jersey and to put it on every night, I used to have goosebumps when I walked into the Garden.
Yeah. Because
I represent the history of the Knicks at that time.
So nice.
And that's what I felt. And I felt an honor to represent the city and the team and where I came from in Brooklyn. And it was just a special time for me, and it's a memory that I'll never forget.
Yeah. And I would think the New York fans always love a born and bred New Yorker on the squad, right? I mean, you got to get like just a different level of love back then. Well, I remember when Mark Jackson was on the team.
Exactly.
Same thing. Obi the last couple of years,
Carmelo Anthony.
Oh, yeah, of course. Melo. Yeah. And Precious is from the Bronx.
Yes,
so,
Precious is from New York also.
Yeah, but you can't imagine what it's like to step on that floor and to have your mother and father in the stands.
Amazing.
To have your sister and brothers in the stands.
Yeah.
And to have friends in the stands rooting for you. And you're representing them every time you're on that floor. And so I played at a different level when I came here to New York. I wanted to raise my game and help the team win as much as possible. So it was really, really an exciting time.
Well, I've been a fan forever. And I was a fan with you too. When I played basketball in high school, I had the number 30. I thought I was Bernard King. I thought I was Bernard King. I was shooting like Bernard King. I was going to the hoop.
Did you perfect the baseline move?
I did perfect the baseline move. I did perfect the baseline move. And, well, I wasn't a season ticket holder then, but we had a guy where I lived that he used to get us into the game. He used to take the youth off the street and we used to come to the games. How we got in here? I'm not going to say anything. I got nothing to say about that. But when we got in there, he said, be quiet, just come with me. And we just went with him. We got to see Bernard King play. We got to see Roy Sparrow, Cartwright. Oh my goodness.
My teammates.
Yes. We actually met Cartwright, and when I met Cartwright, I was looking sky high. I was like, oh my God, he's a giant. So everything about the Garden, and I could not wait until I got old enough to buy tickets because I became a season ticket holder, and now I'm good. But everything about the 80s, especially when you came to New York, I just looked at the games and I just wanted to be there because of the way that New York was playing, because the atmosphere in the Garden, everybody, it didn't even matter what color you were in the Garden. Everybody talked to everybody. Everybody, if you had a good game, everybody recognized you. And that's just how it was.
The early 1980s Knicks were led by Michael Ray Richardson and Bill Cartwright. They won 50 games in 80-81 and then traded Richardson to Golden State for Bernard in 1982.
My first year here with the Knicks, we made the playoffs. The preceding year, the team didn't make the playoffs, so I felt great about that, the success we were having. But we were facing the Nets.
Mm-hmm.
Who was playing the small forward position at the Nets? My brother.
Yeah.
And my parents are in the stands, so if you can imagine what that must be like, Leslie, to have your parents watching their sons oppose each other.
Yeah.
It's such an important game for each franchise in the playoffs. You know, it's pretty amazing. But we never talked about basketball ever.
That is when you felt the shift happen, right? Like, I don't know how many games we won that year. We got into the playoffs. Then 83, 84, that great Piston series, right? You beat those guys in 5.
That's
Isaiah has that crazy game 5.
That's right.
Then you take the Celts to 7 games.
In that Detroit series, we weren't supposed to win that series because Detroit had a great basketball team, obviously a great player in Isaiah Thomas. And in that series, I was playing with 2 dislocated fingers. Oh, gosh. I had a cast on the middle finger of my right hand, a cast on the middle finger of my left hand, and my 2 fingers, index finger and middle finger, taped together on each hand. And every time I caught the ball, I was in pain. And so that was very difficult for me to play in that series. Wow. And then in that 5th game, I had the flu. And we had shoot around the morning of the game, the 5th game. And I came down to the team bus, but I was really feeling badly. Rick Pitino, assistant coach, he had the flu as well. So I went back up to my room. And so they didn't know whether or not I was going to play at 5th game. But I didn't want to let my teammates down, dislocate the fingers.
I was going to say, there's no way you're not going to play game 5, right?
I'm going to play. And I'm averaging 42 points a game for the series. In the first game, scored 23 consecutive points, which had never been done before at that time in NBA history. But in that 5th game, it came down to the wire. And what a lot of people don't know, because I never talked about it, the game is on the line. We're down by 1. We're in the huddle. And Hugh B. Brown, my head coach, he's designing a play for someone else on my team. I'll repeat, the game's on the line. Yeah. He's designing a play for Billy Cartwright. And I've never questioned a coach and a coach's decision ever in my basketball life. But I'm sorry, the game is on the line. The season's on the line. I want the ball.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What would you do?
If I'm you,
yeah,
I may be whispering UB's ear. I think you're making a mistake.
what would you do in that situation?
Well, I would probably say, I want it. Just right there.
You?
I wouldn't say anything. I would shoot. I would take the shot.
Well, you know,
on the line.
In that huddle, he's designing the play and it's going to Billy. And I said, Hubie, and it's hot and it's loud. And I said, Hubie, do I have the right to take it myself? And he's looking down and he didn't answer me. And I screamed louder, Hubie, do I have the right to take the ball myself? I'm telling him I'm breaking this play. And he finally looks up and he said, yeah. And the ball is inbounded, and I waved Billy Cartwright out. And Earl Curitan is defending me. You remember Earl Curitan?
I don't, yeah.
Yeah, well, he was the forward for Detroit. Never forget it. In that heat of that moment, you know what he said? He said, come on and bring it. And so I'll never forget it. I took the ball, 2 dribbles to the left, put it between my legs, and faded. Number net. Yeah. We win that series and we go on to play the Celtics.
What a phenomenal story.
I had to dig through.
I love that. Wow.
I dug through all my old memorabilia. My first playoff series.
Oh my goodness.
The 84 program.
84. Oh wow. Oh, that's
Yeah,
special.
sat up in the Blues for Game 4.
That is special.
Right?
That
Yeah, how
Wow,
cool
it
is that?
truly is.
Right?
That's pretty cool.
That's nice.
Yeah. Up in the Blues, there was, or in the Garden, but like there was such insane energy. You know, like I think that's what you felt like everybody talks about MSG, New York, the mecca of basketball. Our fans are the most knowledgeable. As a kid in high school, you kind of felt that. Like everybody in the house knew the game. We were reacting, or, like they're reacting to the things I think other fans don't see. The foul that isn't called, a nice pick that's set, Bill Cartwright boxing somebody out so that you could get the rebound, like that kind of stuff. But it was just, Game 4, that was mayhem. Like that was, that 7-game series against Boston. And again, like Knick fans,
No, that was exciting. Yeah.
we hate Boston, right? Like all of
Right.
my favorite Knicks memories are when we beat Boston. And that series is probably like the highlight of my Knick fandom, just like, I don't know. That was the moment.
What was it like for you? You sat all the way in the Blues, as you said.
That's
when
all
you
I knew.
came
That's
on-
all we could
but
do.
Eventually, you came on down to the floor. How was that?
First time I got to sit courtside, that is a different way to watch the game. I mean, like it is just, you see the speed and the strength
Right.
in a way that I don't think you can see even 10 rows up.
Yeah.
But I think because I grew up there, like we have season tickets too, but like I didn't want my kids to think sitting on the floor is how to watch the game. So we're up 20 rows with the fans. The 20 rows is still good seats, but it isn't the floor. You know what I mean?
And as I was saying earlier, we're 18 rows up in the same exact seat that I sat in, 40 years ago. And it's in the 80s. I had just graduated from college. You say what the 80s was like, and the Garden. Anytime you could get there to watch a game and to be part of the Knicks and part of the Garden was really the place to be. And we were all there together, and we all felt the togetherness of just enjoying the game and enjoying watching you play and and being part of the Knicks and being part of the Knicks family. Like you said, you were there with your dad, and I was there with my dad, and it was, and your parents were there at many games watching.
Not many games, every
Every
game.
game.
Yeah, they attended every game.
That's
But
That's
I-
really nice.
Oh,
That's really
it was so
nice.
special.
Yeah.
It truly was.
Yeah.
But I guess the most exciting time for me as a member of the Knicks is when you pointed out when we played the Celtics. The vaunted Celtics, one of the greatest teams that's ever played the game in the history of basketball. It's when you have Larry Bird, you have Robert Parrish, you have Kevin McHale, you have Danny Ainge, you have Cedric
DJ
Maxwell,
at the point, yep.
Dennis Johnson. You have 4 Hall of Famers on that team. And we had a tremendous defensive team. And I think that's where we laid our stake is on defense. But we knew that during the regular season that we had won 3 games at home and Boston won 3 games in Boston. So we knew that we could compete against the
Right.
Boston Celtics. And that was an amazing series.
And I forget,
to
did it
go
work out
against
that
them.
way in the playoffs?
It
3 at home?
It did.
They got
We
I know
won
they
3,
won
we
game
won
7.
3 at home.
Interesting.
And they won the 7th game, which was at Boston
Yeah.
Garden. Unfortunately for us,
Yeah.
and Larry Bird had a great game, and they won that game. Had it been here at the Garden with our
It would have
fans,
been
Oh,
different.
yeah.
It would have been much different.
we'd have won
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah.
That's right.
Without a doubt.
Just with the energy in the building, yo, would have won that game.
What was it like when you scored the 50 points? That was like so exciting for us as fans. But we don't really have the opportunity to ask someone like you, what was it like to be the player that really made history at the time?
Well, what preceded that, I was selected to play an All-Star game that year. And in that game, I scored 18 points. I'll never forget that. And I thought to myself at that time, if I can play at that level amongst the best in the world, then I'm a pretty damn good basketball player.
Yeah.
And I remember the flight from where we played that game in Indianapolis to San Antonio for our first game coming out of All-Star break. And Rick Pitino and I, my assistant coach, was on that flight together. And we had a few guys out that were injured at that time. And so I knew I would have to pick up some more of the offense. And so when I went into that game, you know what I did that afternoon? I ate a turkey sandwich and had a vanilla milkshake, right?
And you remember.
Yeah, I do remember distinctly.
Yeah.
And I went out in that game against San Antonio, and the great George Gervin, Ice Gervin, was playing.
Yeah.
And he was one of the best scorers in the history of the NBA, as you well know.
Ice
And
Man.
I got off to a great start, and started rolling offensively, and we were playing extremely well and wound up with 50 points. And I didn't realize it, at the time until after the game. You don't pay attention to the scoreboard other than the score of the game itself. And so the next night we're playing in Dallas. That was Friday. Now Saturday we're playing in Dallas. And so I had to
back to back. You didn't sit out.
Unlike today, oftentimes happens. So I had a turkey sandwich that afternoon, the second game, and a vanilla milkshake. And in the first game, I didn't go out for shoot around. I just went on, took a quick shot, and went back to the locker room. So the second night, I did the same thing. I went out and took one shot and exited and went back to the locker room, and the game started. And I felt great.
Yeah.
And I decided in that game, because there was a move I did coming down the court, when I'm dribbling the ball coming down the court with Mark Aguirre defending, and he reaches for the ball. I see it, visualization. I can see it right now. I put the ball behind my back. I never did that before, and went up and took the shot, made it and got fouled. And I decided after that game that I'm the best player in the world.
And you were.
And that's how the level I played at moving forward from that second game. So when you ask me what impact that had on my career, it changed my trajectory of my entire career.
Bernard was always a prolific scorer, but he took his game to another level in 83-84. In January of that season, he dropped 50 points in back-to-back games on a Texas road trip. King led the NBA in scoring in 84-85, averaging almost 33 points per game. Arguably, the most memorable moment of his career came on Christmas Day when he dropped 60 points on the Nets in Madison Square Garden.
I guess at that time, I would be considered the most explosive offensive player, by others in the game. And so we're the only game. The Knicks are the only team that's playing on Christmas Day. All the other players around the league are going to be watching the game, all the teams, all the families. And so that's a special time.
Yeah.
And we're here in New York. You know what it's like to be in New York during Christmas, the holidays, the lights, and the festivities, and just the whole scene of Christmas time in New York City. And you want to give a gift, so to speak, to fans. Yeah. You want to do something special.
You sure did.
Did you have your turkey sandwich and vanilla milkshake that day?
I don't recall what I. I don't recall. But the game was so early. It was
they normally
a noontime or 1 o'clock game.
Yes.
is relatively early, so your day gets started. I don't know. It's just the feeling that you can just do anything that you want on the court, and there's no one that's going to be able to stop it.
Yeah.
It's the most incredible feeling to have as an athlete. You're at a point in your career where you can't be stopped. And you can't be stopped. And everything that you do in terms of what a defense is going to do against you, you have a counter to anything defensively they can do against you. You have a counter for it, and it's going to work. Yeah. And to be able to play at that level in that way is just amazing. It's amazing.
It was amazing to watch you as well. To be part of that experience was truly amazing. I do want to say one thing. I told a few friends I wanted to do a little questions in history and asking some friends, and one of my friends said, "Are you kidding? I would give him my lung, whatever, my kidney, whatever the man. He made my life." So I hope you know how really your fans really appreciated all the hard work that you did for us.
Thank you.
Really memorable for everyone that was there, particularly my group.
I was looking at some clips on YouTube yesterday, kind of getting ready for this, and I caught an old interview with Dominique. They were asking him toughest guy to guard, and they went through the laundry list of guys, and he's like, nope, Bernard. He goes, if I went up against Bernard, I had to just concede 40. He was gonna get his 40 points, nothing I could do. He goes, the only thing I could try to do was match him. So to your point,
Dominic was a great player. When you talk about the 80s, that was really the era of the small forward.
Yes.
When you look and think about it, you had Dr. J, Larry Bird, Dominique Wilkins, James Worthy. The list, Mark Aguirre, the list goes on. So every night you're facing one of the greatest players that's ever played in the history of the game that can undress you, make you look bad.
Yeah. I forget, was Ernie on the Knicks when you came, or does he show up?
We joined the same year. Talking about Ernie Grunfeld.
Yeah.
Right.
Ernie Grunfeld and I played together at the University of Tennessee. We were
Right.
teammates.
Oh, wow.
But Ernie and he came over from Phoenix Suns, and I came in from the Golden State Warriors, and we joined the same year. Lived in the same town in New Jersey as well. We were been friends for life.
Yeah.
So it's been really wonderful.
I got to become friendly with him in the 90s when he was the GM at the Knicks, and a great guy. And, told me a bunch of great stories about, your guys' friendship and playing together and how cool it was to play in college and then show up in New York and
The
play
Ernie and
together.
Bernie show, they call
Yeah.
it. If you think about the 70s, that team was predicated on a great deal of teamwork in terms of moving the ball, passing the ball, cutting to the basket. And you had a lot of camaraderie and great personalities on that team as well. Our identity as a team was built on the defensive end of the floor. And the first year I was here in 82, we got off to a tough start. We went 0-7 to begin the season. You can't do that here in the Garden. You can't. Come on now, you know that. You can't go 0-7.
There might have been some booze.
Yeah, we
Might have been some booze back then.
We had 8 new guys. We had 8 new players,
Right.
so the chemistry hadn't formed
You got
yet.
to gel.
Yeah, but by the second half of the year, we actually had the second best record in the league. And so the personality and the foundation was built. I was named captain of the team that year. And how that develops is the team takes a vote of who they would like to have as captain of the ball club. And Marvin Webster was at the time and decided to make a change. And, I cried about that. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
I'm just a kid from Brooklyn.
I was going to say, yeah.
The
Amazing.
playgrounds
Hometown kid
of
makes good.
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And now I'm the captain of the New York Knicks. That was a special moment that I'll never forget, holding in my heart for the rest of my life. And Willis Reed was the captain. So that was truly special.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
It is
Great
amazing.
thing. Yeah.
It's, I try not to cry about it, to be honest about
It's
it.
beautiful.
But I did cry that day
Yeah,
when they named me
yeah.
captain.
In March of 1985, the unthinkable happened. King suffered a devastating knee injury during a game in Kansas City. At the time, no NBA player had fully recovered from a torn ACL. Bernard would become the first, but it took him 2 years.
The other clip that I saw that's wild to look at is when you come back after the injury and the standing O that the Garden gives you that went on for, you got to look at this clip on YouTube. It's got to be 5 minutes long. Like you can even see your teammates on the bench. I remember like Kenny Walker, I spotted him there. And they're standing, and then it's going on and on. And you can see the guys are getting into they can't believe that kind of warm welcome back you got. That was just incredible. And then you're lights out for those 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, that's right. It's obviously the ovation, something I will never forget. But that was a very difficult period of my life. I'm first team All-Pro. Voted most valuable player of the entire league by the players the preceding season. And that's the level I'm at. And I go up to block Reggie Thea's shot and my entire knee shatters. And I knew when I was in the air, my career was over. If you can imagine. In the air, I knew my career was over. Well,
how? What did you...
My knee shifted in that way. Your knee's not supposed to shift like that.
Yeah,
I felt the shift and a break. And so I in the air in that split second, I knew it was gone. Next morning, we go to the airport. You get on the bus, no one's talking. No one says a word. They say no to the seriousness of it, if you can imagine. So, I get on the plane, and I made a decision on that flight that no matter what the doctors tell me, that I'm going to come back, no matter what they tell me. And I go into the hospital, call my attorney, and I said, find the top orthopedic doctors in the nation, tell them who's involved, and ask them if they would consider flying to New York to examine me. And 3 doctors at their own expense flew to New York. And they told me that, you need surgery just to walk properly. Okay. If you can imagine, I have a whole list of questions I want to ask in a tape recorder to record the conversation, but there's no conversation because they say your career is over. You need surgery just to walk properly again. And I thanked them for coming. And ultimately, it came down to 2 doctors. I went to bed that night, and I thought about what's important to me. What's important to me? My heart's going to bring me back. I'm not worried about coming back. What's important? I want to be an all-pro. I want to be an all-star again. So I asked each doctor, I said, do you believe your technique will allow me to come back and become an all-pro again, to be an all-star again? And one doctor said, no, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. I said, okay, thank you. I asked the second doctor the same question. And the second doctor said, well, I believe my technique will give you the best opportunity to do that. I said, well, you got the job. And we worked 5 hours a day, 6 days a week, documented for 2 straight years of my life.
Wow.
To come back. And each day, at the conclusion of those 5 hours, I would take this right hand and I would pat myself on the back 3 times. Way to go, Bernard. Way to go today, Bernard. Way to go today, Bernard. And then I close the door and I would forget about it. I made it to that ovation, but it took that work to get there.
Wow. Sorry, I want to give you an ovation right here. That was amazing. What a special story.
Obviously, you must have a crazy work ethic and drive and heart to become the player you became, from Brooklyn to the captain of the Knicks. But like when you're in the middle of that workout, those 2 years, did you know I have that size of heart, that kind of drive? Or are you discovering something new about yourself through that process?
I had that. That's how I made it to the NBA. And again, I received that gift, and I call it a gift from my parents. Because I watched my mother, who raised each of us, 6 of us kids, and she cooked every day. She cleaned the apartment every single day. She cared for us every day. And never complained. My father went to work every day in the housing development we lived in. He was a janitor, responsibility for cleaning the buildings, and I watched him work. And my drive and determination and my ethic came from them. I
think everyone, while in rehab, you had to feel the entire city rooting for you to get better and to be able to walk, and it's really a miracle story.
And then you make the All-Star team.
And then you make it.
Yeah.
He made the All-Star team.
I came back for 6 games and I played awfully well. First game, I'm nervous as anything, that first game back. And you talked about the ovation. It was just simply incredible. To stand there on that floor and to receive the love and reception from the Knicks fans is the most special moment I've ever had.
Shortly after Bernard's injury in 1985, the Knicks won the NBA draft lottery and picked Georgetown center Patrick Ewing. Ewing was hurt during King's brief Knicks comeback, so the 2 superstars never played a game together.
The 85 draft was a good draft. Unfortunately, I snuck in there as I normally do.
Well done.
And that draft, it was so energetic in there. And when they said the New York Knicks select Patrick Ewing, the whole garden stood up. They was waiting just to cheer for Patrick Ewing. And Patrick Ewing walked up there, and it was like, we got a championship coming now. And everybody was looking forward to that. Everybody was looking forward to the team that was getting put together around Patrick Ewing. And we really wish Bernard King was a part of that team because he was a scoring machine. If Bernard King and Ewing would have been on the same team, you have a rim protector, number one. So it was really hard for people to score on Patrick Ewing. And then you have an ultimate scorer on the other side who Bernard King could score on anybody. And that right there, it was a banner, a lost banner.
Yep.
Well, what people didn't realize about Patrick, because at Georgetown, as you said, he was such a great defensive force that he was a dominant offensive player.
Yeah.
And when he arrived here in New York, no one realized he had those offensive skills. And, sadly, I was in the hospital at the time, laying there after surgery and watching the draft on TV. And I said, oh, doggone it, there's my championship. I felt that if we had played together,
without a doubt,
we would definitely have won a title.
Two tough baseline turnaround Jays, right?
Well, I remember the night that Ewing had his number retired. First time I had a chance to talk to him about it. I said, Patrick, if we had played together, you would have a ring and I would have a ring. And I was on vacation once in Anguilla, and I heard this voice, hey, Bernard. I said, no, it can't be. I turned around, it's Patrick Ewing. It's Patrick Ewing. You know who's coming up behind him? Take a guess. Alonzo Mourning. And who's behind Alonzo Mourning?
Mutombo?
Dikembe Mutombo.
Oh,
And I'll never forget what Patrick said to Dikembe. He said, if Bernard and I played together, would have kicked your butt.
yeah.
But those were some great years that Patrick had here, with the club, obviously. And I played against that team.
Yeah.
With Patrick dominating at the center position. I went on to play with the Washington Bullets.
Yeah.
And, I went on to become an all-star again. And that's what I was building and climbing for 6 years to get there post-surgery. And ironically, the game the very next day, where is it being played at? In Madison Square Garden. After I'm selected as an all-star for the first time post-injury. Yeah. I called my mother. I said, Mom, don't be late. I'm getting 40 tonight. That's what I told my mom. Don't be late. I'm getting 40 tonight. And we come into the garden, and I dropped 49. Nice. And I'll never forget it. I'm on the foul line, about to take a free throw for the 49th point, and the fans got on their feet and gave me a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Never forget
That's
it.
really
nice. A well-deserved standing ovation.
Yes.
Well-deserved.
And I kept my word. I'm going to be an All-Pro, and I became an All-Pro that year. I was selected to the All-Pro team after the season as well.
Such a great story.
Amazing
well,
story.
Thank you.
After 3 seasons without a playoff appearance, the Knicks hired Providence coach Rick Pitino in 1987. His team's high-energy defense and silky three-point shooting brought New York its first division title in 18 years to close out the decade.
Pitino, I think they pressed almost the whole game, kind of that run and gun style, get a shot up quick. And I don't know if it was his first year, but the second year we got back into the playoffs. I don't remember who we played in that first round. I don't think we go far. But you started to feel like, there's a little bit of a rebuilding here.
Well, you were talking about Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino was my assistant coach when I was with the Knicks.
Right, with UB, yeah.
Before he ascended to become the head coach.
Yeah.
And, Rick was a tremendous coach. He knew the game inside and out. And more importantly, he got the players to give everything they had. And they wanted to play for Rick Pitino. And you talk about the pressure defense that we had to go up against. Yeah. When I was with the Bullets, we hated that. But, you had some tremendous teams. Obviously with the dominance of Ewing, you're going to have that. Yeah. And you had a great point guard in Mark Jackson. His leadership, and he was quite flamboyant with his passing on the court.
And he was
a true Knick.
Yeah,
he's a New Yorker. Yeah. He was a true Knick, and with special time for that team.
Yeah. Definitely.
That right there was you had to be a man to play in the NBA. Yeah. Because if you went in the middle, you came out, beat up.
Well, the game was very physical back then.
It was physical. The players these days could not play at those games.
Well, if you wanted to come through the paint, there was no easy baskets.
You had to pay the price.
And they would take you down to the floor oftentimes. And so I created a move where I stayed out of the paint, but I get my 2 points just a step outside of the lane. Right. But no, oftentimes you would go in, and a guy like Rick Mahorn, who played for Detroit, he would level you to the floor. And then he would extend his hand to help you up. And I never took his hand, ever. So I didn't want to show any signs of weakness. And I remember John Solly playing for the Detroit Pistons. He's talking about the physicality of the game. He sent me to the floor, and then he extended his hand. I didn't take it. I got up and he said, "I'm sorry, Bernard. Coach told me to do that."
That's great. With like the scoring that's happening this season,
Oh, yeah.
especially the numbers that guys are putting up, and the game has changed, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like no more
Oh, it's a
hand
great
checking. You
game.
can't body a guy in the paint like that. The 3-ball. When you think like you were dropping back-to-back 50-point games on the road, you're playing today. I don't know if you ever allow yourself to go there, but think about, your game. Does it look like, oh my God, I could have lit these guys up?
Well, the game is more finesse.
Yep.
It's not a physical game, and it's a very entertaining game. It's more entertaining now for the fans than it was during the era that I played because of the style of play. And so the fluidity of the game has changed. And the talent level is just tremendous. But more importantly, you have the spacing on the floor because of the 3-point shot. It opens the floor up, and so the guards can get into the lane and, do a lot of things that weren't being done during the course of my era.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think about it in that way, what impact I would have had on the game. But, okay, if I averaged 32, I would average 35 or 37.
Okay.
Or maybe even 38.
Yeah.
In case it wasn't really, really obvious by now, few players in Knicks history have left a lasting impression on fans like Bernard King.
Well, he was a force.
You want me to leave?
He was he was. You know what? He was a force. They depended on you, and you knew that, and you always showed up for every game. And we knew when they were down, you were going to show up and bring the team with you. And it was an exciting time and a great time to be in New York, and a great time to be a ticket holder.
I feel like, because again, my dad was a diehard fan, and growing up,
too.
You're hearing about the 70 and the 73 championships, right? But that's their team, and I come of age when you get to the Knicks in 82. So it's like, that is my first love, and it's like, it is that is your great love. So that team is when I fall in love with the Knicks, fall in love with Bernard King. Like you, I wore 30. Like, I just like, and that is the one that you take forever. So when people say, who's your favorite all-time Knick? For me, it's still Bernard King, and that just, so like that, the age I was, that period in my life, and then that team. And then, like I said, that 7-game series against the Celts, where it just was like, we were so close. That was our taste of what those earlier fans have, even though we didn't get the banner. So for me, that's it.
Yeah, for me, I just love the game. We used to play basketball outside. And when me and my brother used to play, he used to be Albert King, I used to be Bernard King.
Is that right?
Yeah, we had a good time. We talked about you.
Yeah.
We used to talk about the games that you had the day or the night before.
Wow.
Just to see, everybody had to see who was the best. And to me, you was the greatest thing on earth.
Thank you.
That's what I love.
Thank you.
You, number 30. I wanted 30. My daughter bought me 68. I wanted 30.
As a young kid, growing up on the playgrounds of New York City, emulating whether it's Earl Monroe or Walt Frazier or Willis Reed, my favorite player was Dave DeBusschere. Because I was a rebounder as a young player growing up. And to dream, a childhood dream of one day playing for the New York Knicks, as all kids in New York that played basketball dreamed of playing for the Knicks. And to have that dream become a reality, there's nothing like it in life.
Wow.
To live your dream.
That's beautiful. Really nice.
And that's what I did every night. I put on that uniform in the garden. Was a dream.
I'm jealous of Leslie, Sherrod, and Ed for this one. Sitting up in the blues at 1980's MSG to watch Bernard light it up, that really would have been the dream. We'll be back soon to cover 2 Knicks finals appearances, 3 iconic rivalries, and about 100 brawls in the 1990s. Until then, I'm New York Nico, and this is The Garden Party.